Greetings, fam. Today's video, some of you might consider it another issues video, but I'm not going to call it that because the issue is not my issue. It's actually the issue of some of my subscribers. So I want to address it because it's getting a little bit out of hand, and I think that I should address it. I'm going to call today's video Why Some Black People Don't Sound Black. I have had on more than one occasion people use the comment sections of my video to berate me because I do not sound what they consider black. And I've been accused of trying to sound white. So I want to address this once and for all because you're so wrong, and I'm going to prove it. First, I want to say that, how a person speaks is usually a reflection of their heritage and their background and their family. A child that's growing up in their formative years will mimic the language spoken in the household. This is why you have, or in their environment, I better yet put that, it's broader than just the household, because you have kids who, although their parents, and the family lives in the hood, and the parents may or may not speak what people consider ghetto, there's the child who may go outside of the house and hang with peers and be in the hood and adopt the language of their peers and the neighborhood that they're in order to fit in. Then you have, in the household, certain households, you have families who have migrated from other places, like West Indians and Haitians and Sakpase, by the way, and, other cultures, Spanish, and the accents that they have from their homeland, they bring with them, and when they have children, even though the children are born in America, the child may or may not develop the same accent as that of those who are in the household. I have been around Jamaicans who I never knew were Jamaican because they have absolutely no accent. And I'm sure people accuse them of denying their heritage, but the fact of the matter is they were born here, and their parents, for some reason or another, lost the accent when they got here, so the child was not privy to hearing the accent of their homeland, and they wound up speaking without the accent. Also, I've been told by some people from the Caribbean that they purposely lose the accent because in a lot of cases, especially in patois, there is a mispronunciation of words and a misuse of grammar. Some of you may recall that there are certain phrases that where the word me is used instead of the word I. So me no want this thing in my house and so forth. And so a lot of the Caribbean culture that comes to America, they realize that this is not the proper grammar usage, and they want to change it because they want their children also to speak properly. And they don't necessarily encourage losing the accent, but along with changing the vernacular comes the change in words and language. There are many black people who do not sound like what we look. I'm Ethiopian, I'm African, and I don't sound like anyone from Ethiopia. There are a lot of us who don't look like what we are. There are black people who look Spanish, there are black people who look, there have long been black people who looked white, there are many of them, and those who admit what they are, a lot of times people are shocked, and people actually will try to tell them, oh, well, you could say you're this or you say you're that. But if there's any type of pride left in you, you're going to say what you are and be proud of it. So despite some of us not sounding like what we are, those of us who have knowledge of self will speak and always make sure that people know that we are not attempting to be anything other than what we are. In my case, since we are talking about me, I can tell you that I did not grow up in a family unit. I grew up in the system. Those of you who read my autobiography, The Thug Bible, you will recall that I went through so many foster homes, I lost count. That can take away your culture. I was exposed to many different types of people. In some of those homes, I didn't even speak because the people didn't want to hear anything from me. They actually told me, don't talk to us. And in some cases, I was told, don't look at them. And for years, I would walk around with my head down because I thought nobody wanted me to look at them. And so, a lot of what we get in childhood develops us into the adults that we become. The only place that I found I was the recipient of any type of love outside of my peers was in school, where teachers encouraged me, and they saw that I had a love for English. They saw that I had a love for grammar and for reading and comprehension. So they encouraged me in those areas, and there were teachers who taught me to speak properly, and if I mispronounced something, they corrected me, and a lot of times I was asked to read for the class. And I've spoken this way all of my life, but I found that it became even more pronounced as I began to learn languages. And those of you who, like myself, know more than one or two languages, you will agree that the learning of languages also requires the learning of different pronunciations in order to elocute the language properly. I speak Spanish, German, Chinese, Japanese, and Wolof, which is my African language. And in the speaking of these different languages, there's a different tonality attached to them. ¿Cómo está? Bien, gracias. ¿Y tú? Konnichiwa. And I'm using the Spanish in between just to elaborate more on that, because that's the one I'm most familiar with. Li hamao, hang hao, she she, bukachi, bigates inen, vashish dynaname, nangadef. So I've said greetings in the languages that I speak. And as you can see, each one has a different tone to it. German is very rough and harsh. Had I spoke that most of my life, I would probably have a very harsh sounding voice, because that is the tone that is needed in order to elocute the German language, the Deutsch, which is what it is. It's Deutsch. And in order to elocute that properly, you have to get the right tone. Spanish, you can pretty much run with it because it's a language that doesn't require too much of a deviation of one's voice. But Chinese and Japanese also require you having a different tone when you execute and elocute. So that perhaps has something to do with my not sounding what people would prefer to call black. But let me just say this: what is sounding black? When you say I don't sound black, does it mean because I don't sound like hood? Because I am not using a lot of slang? And I do. I throw slang in there every now and then, but I'm not going to swagger jack you just to sound what you consider black. I'm going to be who I am, and if anything, you should try to swagger jack me. And I'm joking. I'm actually joking. I'm just trying to find somewhere to fit in the slang. But think about it. You go into a lot of workplaces, you don't have people running around, yo, what's up? Yo, 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 let me get that. Yo, "What's good, my homie?" And I realize I'm probably a little out of date with the slang, but you get my point. There are many black people who have one language that they speak in the streets and when they're in their hood, and when they go to the office place or places of business and places where people pay them to behave a certain way, they leave that at home as it should be. So are you, those of you who accuse me of not sounding black, are you saying that those people should lose their jobs just to be true to the hood? I think that's kind of dumb, if you ask me. I think people should do whatever they need to do, and especially if it's a step up. If it's something that's going to better your life, then why not? Everybody doesn't relate to that. Maybe where you're from, people relate to that, but when you come out of that circle and you go out into the world, everybody does not relate to that. So you have to find a universal approach that works wherever you go, especially those of you who are about it. We talk about that. We talk about stepping up our game. Well, part of stepping up your game is learning how to speak properly so that everyone can understand you, not just the homies. And then again, you have some black people who have other vernaculars. You have some black people who actually, no matter how old they get, they still sound like little children. And they cannot help it. I'm sure if they had a choice, they would have changed their voice a long time ago. With all the grief that I have gotten over the years about my speaking voice, if I could have changed it, I would have. But I didn't try. Just like I didn't try to sound black, just like I didn't try to sound white, I'm not going to try to sound black. This is who I am. You've got people like Michael Tyson that if he's behind a closed door, you would think you were talking to a 5-year-old girl because he speaks like a little kid, but I bet you no one will tell him that in his face. Then you've got the singer, I'm sure you remember her, Michelle, who also, she sounds like a kid. And she's had this voice for over 40 years, and she still sounds like a little kid. And I'm sure if she could have changed it, she would. So my point is that, a lot of us, now there's some who do change themselves and they work on themselves to be what they consider the best they can be. But most of us are who we are as a direct result of where we come from. And not all black people come from the hood. And not all black people who do come from the hood sound like they come from the hood. So my point, I guess I'm making, is that, don't hate me for things that I cannot control. If you're going to hate me, then have a valid reason. Hate me because I'm spreading truth out there and you don't want to hear it. Keep it 100. Say, you know what, I'm just really not feeling your messages and this is why I don't like you. Don't hate me because you think I want to be white or you think I work on trying to sound white. And not only that, the other side of the coin is that you have some white people who actually sound, quote unquote, black. But it's not black as in a way that we should be proud, because you've got some white people who perfect the ignorance in their speech to the degree where if they were on the other side of the wall, you would think you were talking to some hood rat. And in most cases you are. They're just white. And they think that this gives them credibility because they're hanging around with black people, and so they want to feel like, we can relate. But guess what? We can relate even if you don't try to sound like that. You don't have to assimilate to integrate. So, that's my point. And I hope you get it. Those of you who have taken it upon yourself to diss me. And it's all good. Truly it is, because I'm not going to change. I know who I am. And I'm proud. I'm a proud black woman, regardless of how I sound. I was born black. I'm gonna die black. God bless you. And thank you for listening.
Am I black enough for you? Am I black enough for you?